All right, Gypsy Gang, we are back for what I'm going to call just a complete rip-off of Joe Rogan and his fight companion. We're just going to call this the Supercross companion because that's what it is. So this is a Supercross. This is a companion, little buddy to help you get through the Supercross series. We're just going to be speaking on, I guess, the current events. As we go forward, I would like to... We're supposed to have Sam in here again. And I just need to get... Sam, put me on your Google Calendar, please, because I just don't know where you're at in the world. I thought we'd be able to make it happen again with you, mate, but turns out you're in the US again on fist work. So it's just me and the Gypsy Tales producer himself. Big dog Mick is in studio, so he is going to be feeding us some topics to sort of speak on. And then I think we have Townley in the studio next weekend. So we might even actually watch the race with him next weekend. So anyway, we're trying to figure it out again. I said it before, but still figuring out the new studio. But so far, pretty pumped on it. Mick, what is your thoughts on the Supercross series so far? Last weekend was a fucking doozy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We're in probably one of the tightest seasons that we've seen for a fair few years. Last weekend's finish came down to 0.28 of a second, which is nothing.
I wonder what 0.2, like, was it 0.02, like 0.002? Yeah.
Yeah, 0.2.
Like, what does that even look like? You know what I mean? Like, if you had to put that close of a finish into perspective, what does that even look like? Like, what are some comparisons you could actually draw? Like, that kind of time is like world record swimming kind of increments.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not... Motocross and Supercross doesn't normally come down to that.
No.
There was nothing, literally nothing in that win, which, like, I guess, man, that sort of segues into almost another topic of, like, Ken losing by that. Because he really had that whole race. Like, we saw Tomac go down at the start.
Yep.
And then Ken just out in front. And it's like, you know, I said on the last one that he's trying to play that Dungey role. But at some point, like, where do we hit the mark where people are going to stop saying, like, it's so good Ken just stays in the hunt and he's being consistent, to when is Ken, like, when will he win one of these things?
Absolutely. And, like, we're at Detroit this weekend. You know, it's a pretty crazy track. You start to think that Ken should be getting to the point of winning one. Like, he's, you know, everyone else is in that hunt has won a race at this point. So it's time. I think it's time that he gets to that point, especially when you're leading a race by that margin, to have someone like Webb come through on the confidence he's got from 7th. It's huge. So
yeah, and that's the thing, like, you actually raise a pretty good point there, is everyone else has won.
Yeah.
That's in the, well, Marvin hasn't won though.
No.
So I mean, there you go. There's two title heavy hitters that are in the hunt. Like, it goes Cooper Webb, Ken Roczen, and Marvin Musquin in the points lead. And the dudes battling in second and third haven't won a race yet. So, like, are we putting... I'm saying Bosch is an outlier at this point.
Yep.
For the Supercross Championship. I don't think he factors in our conversation. Eli hasn't shown enough consistency to be in the top 3 at, like, basically the halfway point of the series. So are we throwing him out of the championship? So now the 3 dudes that we potentially have able to win this championship, only one of them has won a race, and he's won 4 now. So it's like, to me, it's starting to look like this is Cooper Webb's championship.
Absolutely. Is it the sort of, you know, the Cooper Webb show just about at the moment? Like, you've got a guy that came into the season somewhat under the radar, and now with 4 race wins midway through the point of the season, he's to lose? You're like, really?
Well, I think you have to say it's Cooper Webb's championship to lose as of right now. But the crazy thing with Cooper is that Cooper Webb is not the kind of guy that will think that this is his to lose. Cooper Webb is the kind of guy that gets excited that it's his to win. And there's a big difference. And I think that, man, maybe a guy like Eli Tomac has looked at it as his to lose. And he has lost it. And you get a guy like Marvin that it's his to lose. And I remember being a golf fan, listening to interviews with Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, two of the greatest golfers of all time. And those guys, like, it gives me goosebumps now to talk about it, because they would say in interviews, I live for the moment where it's a 6-foot putt, downhill, huge break to the right, and that's to win the Masters.
Yep.
And Cooper Webb, to me, has that same Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, like, he wants the big moment. He's not the kind of guy that wants to win a championship in an easy way. He's not the kind of guy, I mean, I'm sure he'd be happy with it, but he's the kind of guy that's going to, like, march to the flame. Yep. He's going to walk into it, and that would be, he gets his confidence from winning those small battles where he has pushed in. And Anaheim won, to me. Like, when I saw the way Cooper Webb rode at A1, I honestly thought, there's a dude that was just risking it. And I was like, that's not the move, dude. Like, anyone, I thought anyone could go that fast if they wanted to. Any one of the top dudes. But they just weren't, because they were being smart about the championship. But then when you roll the dice like that and it pays off like that, you're like, oh shit. Like, this just gives him tickets on himself. This, like, I'm the man ticket.
Absolutely. And now he's backing it up with perfect consistency too.
Yeah.
The speed and consistency is huge.
Yeah, you get the speed, which is what got him from practically last to 5th in the mud at A1.
Yeah.
And then you go, all right, I'm a bad dude. And then you start getting some starts dialed, and then you win kind of from the front. And then last weekend you come from 7th to charge to 1st and win in the small. Like, even that is crazy to, like, a lot of dudes would be happy to go from 7th to 2nd. They'd get on the podium. They'd say, you know what, we minimize the damage tonight. We going to take some good points out of here. Tonight wasn't the win we were after. We're going to chase something to work on our starts, and then we move on. And maybe that's what Ken's been doing, because that speech has come from Ken a lot, which we've been praising him for. It seems like the move, given the fact that he has crashed out of the last 2 seasons. But with Cooper, we didn't get that, I'll take 2nd and I'll, take the positives out of this weekend. We'll move on to Detroit. No, he went for it on the last lap, and he won with the smallest margin of victory in Supercross history.
Absolutely.
And what that does is, that is the biggest slap in the face of Ken Roczen. Because Ken has been the guy that has just been taking the seconds. He's been going and giving that speech on the podium, and I'll take the positives. And they are legitimate positives. It's not like it's an act. Like, it is a positive. You're on the box. And we've seen in the past that if you're on the box every weekend like Ken's been, that when you get to Vegas, you're really going to be in the hunt. But Cooper he's not doing that. And he saw an opportunity to steal a win from the guy who had the red plate, essentially taking the red plate from Ken Roczen. It's like, that's a gangster move.
Absolutely. It's a game changer for the series.
Big time. And it's like, I get worried now that Ken is going to be in this headspace where he is going to doubt his ability to win. If you can't win from the front when Eli crashes and Cooper Webb's got a 7th place start, then can you win at all? And I mean, right now the media is praising Ken, and it's the same thing that I said last week, for this consistency, and it could still be the move. Like, that could still be what wins him the championship. We don't know yet. But there will be a point where the media will start asking questions, And that's just like, the media is like the first people that will be the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room will be in Ken's mind as well. Everybody has that. Every athlete, everybody has that elephant in the room inside their mind that will say, can I win? And races like last weekend where Coop come from 7th to win, and like why was Ken leaving the door open like that? Like surely he knew that he was there.
The experience of Ken Roczen is huge. He, like last corner of a race, the board would have been saying that Cooper Webb's on a charge. Like he's come from 7th through the pack and beaten everybody. Surely he would have known at the last corner that Webb's going to be there. And that was a big, whether or not it was a calculated mistake or running some form of risk, that's got to play part into the last half of the season. That's going to bring up some sort of flashback to him if it comes down to Vegas or something. It has to. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just weird to, at the level, like Ken Roczen is a world champion. Yeah. Ken Roczen is an AMA champion. Like, it just, that race was won. Like, Ken, you just won your first race. No, you didn't. Hold up. Photo finish, and Cooper got you. And it's like, it's just a bowl turn. Just go to the inside, protect the line, and roll the fucking finish line if you have to. Like, it just does. It doesn't. I mean, it's easy for us to say, but to me, it's not like there's any. It's like if you're going and it's the last. Let's say there's a whoop section, and then a 90-degree turn, and then the finish line. Like a run through the whoops, you can't fault a dude if they like just don't get the run through the whoops. There's like 18 or 10 or however many whoops there is. There's like obstacles in your way that have potential every time to upset your bike to the point where you might miss a line. Like, I get that. But just in a simple bowl turn with one corner to go, like, I think even the armchair warrior of me and a guy that's like, I'm friends with Ken, I don't see why you would lose that race. And like you said, that could be like a massive momentum shifter in the championship. And we said before, Coop runs on confidence. There is no one in the series that has more confidence than him right now.
Absolutely. And if we look back at the last few years, we look at Roczen, we look at Tomac. They're guys that have got genuine speed. Like, has Webb joined that? Like, he's got consistency, obviously, for 4 wins, but now he seems to have the speed to match as well. Is that something that you see as well?
Well, you can't come from 7th to 1st and not have speed. Like, at that point, you're the fastest dude on the track. So, I mean, yeah, like, he has to have speed. And he knows he has the bike. And maybe there's a thing, like, I know we'll talk about the whole training stuff next, but, like, now he has the whole Alden thing. And he said it's because of his fitness, but, I mean, he was a beast on a 250. And I don't think the old program that he was on with Swanepoel was, like, a worse program than Alden's or anything like that. Like, all those dudes were killing it. But there's a difference. There's a massive difference in being fit for a 450 and fit for a 250. And it's not only the fitness in terms of the longer motos on a bigger bike with more weight, everything that a 450 brings at that, like the intensity that a 450 brings, then you add in the competition that the 450 brings. Like, there's so many elements to the whole fitness puzzle that I think that it wasn't so much that his last program wasn't good. I think it just takes time to adapt. He was injured last year. So I think that he's got the fitness, which I think he would have had whatever program he went on. But obviously, Alden's program has been proven. But yeah, it's just more now. It's just a time thing. He's had more time. He's obviously super comfortable on the bike. And I mean, it's just like the puzzle pieces of just slotted together for Cooper Webb. And like, it's been a crazy season. Like, it's so close up until now. There's so much unexpected narratives have played out. Anderson's out, champ's done. Barsha wins the first round, crashes out essentially of the championship when he missed those rounds. Kenny's up there in the Dungey role, and Marv just hasn't really showed up yet.
Absolutely. And if we touch on the Marvin thing, we look at for most race people, to beat your teammates the biggest thing to do. How must his confidence be feeling currently? He's been obviously the Dungey years. Now you've got Webb coming in. Do you feel that he's riding on confident Marvin is, or what do you feel about
Marvin
that?
would feel like shit.
Yep.
Right now.
Absolutely.
Like, he was cool with the Dungey thing. They were really good friends. They still are really good friends. And Marv was leaning on that whole second rider thing. And maybe that has become a bit of an Achilles heel in his career. Because when Cooper went to Yamaha, Chad was there, but Chad wasn't the top dog of that team. Cooper was the top dog of that team. Cooper was the guy that Yamaha wanted to come out of the 250 class with all of those championships and go straight in and start winning at the premier level, which didn't happen. So Cooper is used to being the number one dude in the 450 class. So I don't think many people have talked about that. So you get a guy that's used to being the number one guy, goes over to KTM, and then they're saying, it's all good, you got a 2-year deal, Marv's our top guy, we want you to go out and win as many races as you can. So straight away the pressure's off. But then you start beating Marv consistently, you got the red plate, hey Coop, you're the number one dude again. And this isn't different. What, he spent 3 races as the B rider, air quotes B rider for KTM, before he's back to being the top dog. He was the top dog at Star. He was the top dog at Yamaha. And now he's the top dog at KTM. Like, we're seeing a trend.
Absolutely.
And we're also seeing a trend of Marv being the number 2 dude.
Yeah, and for last weekend, that for Cooper to come from 7th, and he just came past Marv. Like, it must be very difficult, you know. They're running the same programs. Yeah, how does that season shape up for Marv moving forward now?
It's interesting. Like, the whole Marv thing to me is interesting because he's hired a riding coach in David Villeman, and I've seen footage of those guys like working together, and they've got Marv like working on turns essentially. And it's like, in my head, as soon as I saw that, and you're giving feedback, like, Marvin's a world champion. We've seen times where when the track gets rough and technical, he makes Supercross look so much easier than anybody else. And in a way that I feel like French people only know how to do. Like, Villeman in his day was so smooth, so calculated. He never won championships, but he was that French flow. You go back to Jean-Michel Bale, he invented French flow. Then you go to Christophe Pourcel, takes the French flow to a whole new level. And then you get Marv, the way he jumps through whoops, the way that when tracks get super jacked, he just makes them look easy. So it's like, why are we hiring a riding coach for a guy that is one of the more effortless riders in Supercross? And then when you're telling him, or like making him do these turns over and over at a test track, and it's like, I get it. Like, I get why you would want to work on your quote unquote technique. But at the top level, when you're the number one rider for the number one race team in Supercross, I'm not for yes men. I just don't. I think you need people that keep it real with you. But in the sense of Marvin having a riding coach telling him that he's not doing turns right or that he should be doing this, like, that dude's got enough to worry about. Why are we muddying the waters right now with another dude? So you've got Alden, and Alden semi-acts as a riding coach sometimes too. Or like, when I've been at the Baker's factory, and I've seen them interact. Like, he is telling them lines. He is, and he said he knows that he's not a professional motocross rider. So, like, I don't think he's ever fully felt comfortable in that role. Maybe he wants someone that is more accredited, which David Villeman obviously would be. But at the same time, I'm like, why? Like, Marvin is, this is I think, a make or break year for Marvin.
Yep.
Like, last year he was the A dude, and he had a great year, didn't win the championship. And then this year, the A guy has just been booted by the success of Coop. So it's like, this is a make or break year. He's a long-time KTM dude. He knows that bike better than anyone that's on one right now. He has all the resources. And I just think that by bringing in a riding coach at this point in your career, I'm like, dude, you don't need to learn how to ride. Like Chad said on the podcast with us here, like, he doesn't even ride that much a lot of time. It's like, these dudes know how to ride. That's not the missing piece of the puzzle. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is, and I don't know where, like, we go from that with Marv.
Well, we've brought up, we've touched on the Baker factory a little bit, conversation. Do you think there's something with that program? Obviously, Marv's been on that for a fair few years now. Has it got to a point for Marvin that it's plateaued for him there, or is there something with that, do you think?
I just think that the whole... So we've got some competing camps, right?
Yep.
In this whole ecosystem of training camps. And it was invented by Alden, which is the Baker's factory. So right there, he's basically got an exclusive deal with Husky and KTM. So all of those dudes have that program available to them. Marv takes it up. Cooper's there. Zach Osborne's there. And then we've got some of the Troy Lee dudes there, I believe. Jordan Smith, who has that same option available, same deal. He can go and ride at Alden's. He chooses to ride at MTF, which is in Georgia, right near Ricky's, Tallahassee. It's like basically like 2 Ks away, but it's separated by the Florida-Georgia line. And Jordan chooses to ride at MTF. So I wonder, with the whole training program deal, if Alden was just so ahead of his time, and now we've seen this period of, like, when did he really come into the sport prominently? It was maybe like 2004.
4 or 5, yeah.
So we've had like 14 years of people to figure out what he's doing. And I think that what's happened now is we've got to a point where these guys have facilities. I mean, all the dudes at the top have been on Alden's program, really, except Tomac, who's always done his own thing in Cortez, Colorado, with his ex-world champion mountain biking father, John Tomac. So their program's solid, and they're over there doing their own thing. But in terms of everyone that's at that top level, they've all been on Alden's program. And I think that what you're seeing now is a guy like Ken, who he was there, he won a championship on Alden's program, has now gone off to the Moto Sandbox, which was formerly the Nest, formerly Villapoto's, formerly Langston's. So he's like taken what he liked from Alden, I'm assuming, and what he didn't like, and has now formulated his own deal with his brother-in-law, Blake Savage, who was also a super talented rider when he was racing amateur. He did some pro stuff, I'm pretty sure, but I think once he got there, he decided that he wanted to go study in the sport stuff instead. But they've now got their own deal. And then you see riders like Chase Sexton on that program, Adam Cincerello. So you've got like this whole group of dudes that is now riding out of this new Moto Sandbox, with Ken as like this figurehead dude that they look towards. And if you look at Ken, he's like shaped like a Greek god. So like the fitness side of what Ken's doing is, I don't think, ever really been doubted. So I think it's just interesting. I think Alden had this secret sauce that it wasn't like that secret. There was no, it's not like you can't follow his program, but it's like Alden was the first dude to introduce that style of training. And we're now 14 years into the Alden era. And I just think people have been on that program and moved on and have taken what they liked and dropped what they don't. And then I think that there's just been enough time. It's been so well documented. Like, how many times have you seen training? How many times have you seen dudes doing workouts? You've seen the exercises. You've heard Alden talk. Like, I just think now we're at a point where people know exactly what's going on with that program, that it's like Alden was so far up here when he first started, and it's taken this long for everyone to catch up. And it's almost like these dudes are just all running at such a high level. Like, Baggett is fit for 20. We've seen that. Cooper's won. Eli's won. Marvin, Ken are right there. So it's like, I don't think that the whole fitness thing is like as much of a secret as what it was when Alden first come in. He changed the game, and now everyone has bought that standard. But I think what's really interesting is the whole Jordan Smith at MTF thing. Like, he's a dude that just hasn't done the Alden thing when it's available to him.
And having the option, obviously, and the success that's been through the Baker factory, do you think that comes from like loyalty to the facility, or what do you think drives that?
I honestly don't know, but Jordan Smith has been at MTF for like almost his whole life. And it would be super hard to leave. Like, you want to talk about a comfort zone? Like, you've basically lived there since you're a kid, and there's people around you that have put so much effort into what you've done your whole life. I don't see it being easy to leave that. And you look at Ken leaving Alden, that was like a 2-year deal. They worked together for 2 years, didn't like it, moved on. Can you imagine like 10, 11, 12 years and then trying to like break up the band at that point?
Family.
They would be family.
Yeah.
Like, Jordan Smith would have spent more time at MTF than in his own house with his own family. And then you expect him to leave because now there's a deal with Alden. Granted, Alden's one of the best trainers in the world and has the most wins of any trainer ever. But is that enough to essentially break up a family of Jordan and MTF? But, I mean, is it the best move for your career?
Absolutely. And, like, moving forward, there's a lot of hopes on Jordan Smith. With that team, they need to win a title, like, realistically. And, when you got the option to train at the Baker factory that has put out all these champions, you start to look at it as a team owner. Is this the best option for my rider? Obviously, he's super consistent. There's speed there, but there's a package being paid for through somewhere.
Yeah.
Would you expect him to break up that family and move over to there? Or I wonder how that works.
It's delicate though, because like, it's like you think about when you say like a rider wanting to terminate his contract. You can't. You never see teams keep a rider that wants to go. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because riders don't want to be riders, we just had some traffic, sorry guys. Riders don't want to, or team managers don't want riders riding for them that don't want to ride for them. And I think that same thing would apply for trainers. Like, a team wouldn't want a rider training with a guy he didn't want to train with. I think that they would force the issue if it wasn't working in terms of where he was at. But we saw last weekend, if Jordan didn't have that crash, he would have been on the box, and he was chasing Faulkner down. So at this point, we're 2 rounds in. No one's hitting the panic buttons yet on Jordan Smith not having a race win. I think that, I thought, and I said on the last episode of this, that this was going to be Jordan's title to lose. And this could be the first one that comes the way of the Troy Lee KTM team. But Jordan made the mistake that I said Austin would make. Chase Sexton made the mistake that I said Austin would make. So, I mean, I don't think that you push the panic button enough to go, Jordan, what you're doing isn't working. Like, I don't think that's the case right now. I think that it has to go a little bit longer, but I mean, the choice is made. Like, he will not be just switching camps midway through and going on to the Baker's factory. Like, that's not how it will work. I think like the main drawback with MTF, and I don't know for sure because I'm not there, I don't know the riders coming out of there, but the thing with the Baker's factory or the thing with Moto Sandbox is the group of guys that you're riding with. And if you look at Moto Sandbox, you've got Christian Craig, you've got Cole Seeley rides there at times, I think, when he's on the West Coast. You've got Ken Roczen, you've got Adam Cincerelli, you've got Chase Sexton. All dudes running up the front. And then you go to Baker's factory and you've got Marv, you've got Ando when he's healthy and riding there. You've got Osborne, you have got Cooper, you've got the other dudes on the Troy Lee team that want to be there. So it's like, it really is this murderer's row in terms of speed and dudes running at the front of the championship. So it's like, that is what I think Jordan is missing out on. But again, I'm not at MTF. I don't know the level, but I can't see it being the same. So that to me is like the disadvantage. Again, I think we've caught up, and especially in the lights class, I just don't think it's as big a deal as it is when you go to the 450 class in terms of the fitness required. Because the bikes, again, the mains are shorter, but it's just the season. You literally do half the races, and the races you do are shorter. So I just don't think it's as big a deal. But what I do think that he will miss out on is just being around dudes that are riding at that speed every single day. But I mean, then again, you say to that is like, do you want to be riding at that speed every day? Like, do you need to be going that fast every day? Lewis Hamilton isn't doing laps in a Formula One car with Nico Rosberg and battling it out every single day. And it's like, those dudes have a roll cage. So it's like, I don't know, do you need to be going that hard every single day?
Absolutely. And we start talking about, like, back at the Marvin thing, like, the technique's there. Jordan Smith has got his technique.
He's the same. They all know how to ride.
They know how to ride a bike. So do they need to be at that pace, at that point, riding as fast as they possibly can, you know, come, Monday to Thursday, probably at the facilities, before they head back over to the race?
And that's what Townley was saying too. Like, he was just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And, like, all his big injuries, except for the one that he had at Coonabarabran, were all practicing and just pushing and pushing. It's like, how hard do you need to go? Like, is there now a culture around doing these motos and being on that edge? Is that just a culture that it's like, if you relate it back to like the UFC, like a lot of guys now, modern training camps are going away from guys sparring at full contact, and it's like, is because the risk of injury. It's just like getting hit in the head over and over and over. It's shortening dudes' careers. So it's like, are we just in a case where there's become a culture around, this is how you have to train. This is the only way you can be fit. This is the only way you can be fast. It's like, have we just got to a point where, like, maybe it has gone too far and we are asking too much of these dudes through the week? Like, yeah, you're right. I don't think Marvin needs to ride 4 days a week to remember how to ride by the time he gets to the track. So, I don't know. What else we got to talk about?
Well, I guess coming into Detroit, Eli Tomac has carried some genuine pace, obviously, through the season. Do you think that mistake last week is detrimental to his season confidence-wise?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same story with Eli. Like, we're literally watching... Well, we're not even watching last year. He hasn't even won... He's won one race. So, I mean, at what point is that even in his head that he can't win? And I don't think it's that he can't win. It's that, like, he makes mistakes when he is winning or should win. It's like, what have we got to do, or what has he got to do? And then it comes down to, like, is it the bike? Because it's that new 2019 Cowie. And here's the thing with that. The stock bike might be way better than last year's stock bike, but last year's factory bike could be way better than this year's factory bike, because they have a life cycle of R&D. So it's almost like, have they just not caught up R&D wise on this new bike, and he's not comfortable on it? But it's the same crashes. It's like, it's that front end. They're just losing the front. So how much of that is setup, and how much of that is just like plain rider error? Like, you just come in too hot, you grab too much brake, and you lose the front. Like, we're not seeing... When Ken crashed and had his huge over the bars thing, that to me looked like bad timing and a bike that put him over the bars in a way. And I say that because of his Monster Energy crash. Of his Monster Cup crash, first ride on the Honda, super similar crash to the one that broke his elbow and wrist. So it's like, that to me is like a dude that just didn't quite expect the bike to react that way, or made a mistake and couldn't recover from that mistake, if that makes sense. But with like washing a front, to me, just doesn't seem like this unexpected bike sort of thing. But maybe he is used to more feeling in the front on last year's bike, but he was still doing that on last year's bike. So to me, it's not like that this is like this uncharacteristic error. It's like, this is now becoming a characteristic trait of Eli Tomac. Let's be winning a race, and let's wash the front. So like, I don't know, man. Like, and that really could be a turning point of the series, to where he's just, it starts to be in his head that this is just Eli Tomac now. This is what I do. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like, I feel like Detroit this weekend, I mean, it's actually probably on now as we record this, but Detroit this weekend it's super important for Ken to win. Like, Ken Roczen has to win in Detroit to keep, I'm not going to say to keep his championship alive, because I think Ken's going to be in this championship no matter what. But I think for Ken to now lay a claim as a championship for his to win, I think we're going to get in a situation where it's going to become, right now it's Cooper's to win and Ken's to lose. And I think that if Ken doesn't win, then I don't think people are going to say it's Ken's championship to win, if that makes sense. Whereas right now we're saying that about Cooper.
Absolutely. And it's, at this point, you look at the consistency that Cooper's got, it's Cooper's to lose, which is a massive statement at this time. But and you look back in recent history, this is about the time that Eli does come back and do a late run in the series as well. So there's some exciting times ahead within what's coming up as well, obviously, as well. So
yeah, and then you've got Daytona too, which is a place where Eli's obviously done really well in the past. I think Ken's going to be good at Daytona. I just got a feeling that Honda's going to get that bike like really dialed for that race. With the way that Jeremy Martin rode the bike there a couple years ago, like, he just went out and he was on the factory Honda and he was just killing it early on. So I don't know. I think Honda's just going to get the bikes really dialed in for that. I think that the other thing though too is, like, if Eli's struggling with bike setup right now, then what's Daytona going to throw at that thing? So, I mean, I don't know. That could be bad news bears for Eli.
So what do you think about the whole Roczen Webb beef? Do you think it's calmed down moving forward? How does that play out for the season?
Yeah, that's like an interesting one, man. I think that the whole Cooper Ken Roczen beef, I think someone was on the Pulp show and said that it was over a girl, which, like, I don't like, I was thinking about it, like, how much of this do I tell? Because I really know the story behind this, and I don't know if Ken wants me to go into that story. I don't know if Cooper probably doesn't either, but so I don't know. I don't know if I want to go into that whole deal. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll ask Ken. But there's definitely a history between Cooper and Ken, and it does involve a girl. So last year they come together, they crash, and they both ruin each other's season essentially with a takeout. One run high and one before the whoops, one clean another dude out in the whoops. If you go back to that crash where Ken run in on Cooper, I don't think that was like a full takeout to try and like as a result of beef. Like there was definitely bad blood there, but I really, really can't see Ken as the kind of guy that's going for like a vengeance takeout over a feud that involves a third party that won't be named. And like, I don't think that's what that was. And I think that correlation equals causation was kind of added into the conversation after the fact. But Ken's just not the kind of guy. Like he just got married. He's a very happy dude. Like all that stuff is so far in the past, and I really cannot see Ken being bitter about that. But they're two athletes at the top of their game, and I think to be an athlete at the top of any sport, there's a certain amount of ego involved. So it's like, I don't know, can you totally rule it out? Maybe not. I don't know. But then you fast forward to this year, and people still talk about the Cooper Webb Ken Roczen beef, and it's still going. And now they're on the podium together every weekend. So it's like there is that talk, but it doesn't seem to have eventuated to anything this year. Why? Because we both saw the consequences of two dudes at the top of the sport coming together in a big way last year. It ended Ken's season and it ended Cooper's season essentially. So it's like, I think that the consequences are too real at this point for those guys to have beef over something as silly as that. And again, Ken Roczen just got married to an awesome chick and is in a great place in his life. So I think that the whole Ken Roczen Cooper Webb beef, I think it got blown out of proportion because they obviously come together. They didn't like each other. I can't see them having a conversation and being mates at this point. I don't know. But I really can't see those two dudes as friends regardless. Like Ken and Dunge never even had any like legit beef and they weren't friends through their career. A lot of these guys that are in direct competition that aren't in the same camps, they're not cool with each other so much of the time. Unless you're Dean Wilson, and then you're cool with everybody. But yeah, I just think that we just saw shit get real last year, in a way. And I think, again, that crash where they come together is unrelated. I think at that point in time last year, I could probably see Cooper pulling a move that would be out of like in relation to something like that. But again, I still don't even think it was. I just think that Cooper had a lot less to lose last year than Ken did. And I think him running it in on Ken before the whoops was just like that's just what a young rookie essentially is going to do to a dude that he wants to beat. So again, I don't even know that it was related even on Cooper's behalf. But I think now you get to a point where there's two dudes involved in the championship, and we saw what happened when they come together last year, and Ken doesn't want that to happen again. Cooper doesn't want that to happen again. Honda doesn't want that to happen again. Red Bull doesn't want that to happen again. So I think that essentially we're just seeing the beef over. I don't think they like each other, but I don't think that's going to factor into this series. But God, it'd be interesting if one of those dudes took each other out. Like, because again, it would just start everything, because there is history. And everyone knows that there's history. And I don't know to the extent what people know, which is why I don't want to like go too far into it. But it's like everyone knows there's history there. So, I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be crazy if they come together again. It would be crazy. But I don't think it'll happen.
As a future, do you see a Stuart Reid style rivalry of two great motorcycle riders going head to head?
I mean, yeah, it's always like possible. I think that their situation was just like so unique and so charged. And I think that in the podcast, and I mean, dude, that video on YouTube where we cut that segment out, that's our most viewed video ever. Like, people love that shit for good reason. Like, that was so raw and real. And I think when Chad went in and broke that down in the podcast, why it was so real, and there was that connection where he was Aboriginal, James is African American, he expected a bit of camaraderie, all he got was shade essentially from James, and so I think that there was like so much more emotion in that. And I think that like the Cooper Ken thing is like maybe emotional because of certain, like that third party that was involved. But again, like Ken's married now. Like he wouldn't care. Like I just honestly don't think Ken would give a fuck. And so it's like, I don't know. I just think that thing with Chad and James was just so real and so raw, and come from like such a deeper place than what. Yeah, I don't know if we have that kind of like raw emotion in the sport now as what that did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I just hope this is the new normal, though.
It'd be awesome.
Like, this is what it should be like. And that's where I think with, like, this whole training thing is it was so dominated by Alden for so long. But it's like he just had this secret sauce that it's it's 15 years almost. And
the thing is, like, now, all the bikes are good.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
At that point, say, the Chad Stewart, like Stewart and Carmichael time, it was the invention of the four-stroke. There was a couple of bikes that were really good. There was this. But now...
They're all
all great. Yeah. And all the athletes are at their peak. Like, you cannot... There's a peak. There's got to be a plateau for bikes, basically. And then, obviously, the rider as well. Like, the Baker factories put it to that peak.
And I think like, the industry, the sport, collectively is at a point now where, like you said, the bikes are phenomenal.
Amazing. Yep.
The athletes are phenomenal.
Yep.
There's no, like, there's 11 dudes that are basically factory riders in the 450 class.
Yep.
One factory rider doesn't make the top 10 every weekend. Like, it's elevated. The sport has elevated to such a crazy level now. And everyone's on that level. It's not just the Alden dudes that have a good bike and a good program equals winning. Like you said, it's so close. Throw a blanket over the top three in the championship, and it's how it should be. And I always thought it was going to come. I honestly always thought it was going to come down to tracks. I thought we had to do something with the tracks to get better racing. The Triple Crown format, I think, has played a big role in this whole deal, right? And it's a Triple Crown this weekend, so. Maybe that's something that is underrated as well, because when did Coop get his first win? The first Triple Crown.
Yep.
So you look at a guy that Anaheim won, he came through and was like basically the fastest dude on the track in the mud. And you can kind of like write that off, like I said. And then you give him the Triple Crown, he goes out, wins 2 of the 3 races, bang, gets the overall. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh shit. I can win a 10-lap race, then I can win 2 10-lap races. That's a 20-lap race. So now you take that confidence into the next round, and whether it's a 20-lap main event or a 10-lap Triple Crown, then I've won both. And I think, dude, Justin Brayton's a great example of that. Justin Brayton won Triple Crown motos, and then he went and won Daytona last year. So it's like maybe it's as well something that plays into this is like the introduction of this new Triple Crown format where it like gives dudes a sniff. It gives them that confidence, and then they can go on to start to put it together in these 20-lap main events.
Absolutely, and like now we're at Detroit for this round. Triple Crown format. You got Zach Osborne's back. obviously last weekend. For people that are coming off injuries and that, this format's such a good thing for them as well.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I know like Chad said he doesn't like them, but I mean, I think they have to stay. And I honestly think it should be 50-50, really. Like, I don't... Yeah, I mean, I thought we needed the tracks to change to get closer racing and closer championships, but looks to me like the Triple Crown format has kind of done that. So yeah, I mean, I'd almost be in favour of going 50-50, to be honest, and then like 2 Daytona style tracks. Let's go through the notes here. Yeah, just seeing what we covered. Trying not to make this too boring so I don't have to edit it out. Yeah, I mean, really, like, the story's just Webb, dude. Like, he's just insane.
Yeah.
Once he gets rolling, it's like, we saw that in the 250 class. Once he gets rolling, see ya.
There's no stopping.
Yeah, it's over. And obviously, in the 250 class, you don't have the same caliber of dudes. You don't have the number of contenders. But slowly, we're whittling it down to Ken and Marv in the top 3. Eli almost feels like an outlier. Eli almost feels like the dude that's like, yeah, he can win, but he's probably not going to win the series. That's what it's like feeling like. But everyone says the series starts at Daytona, and we've seen how good he can be there. But at this point, I don't have anything telling me that Cooper won't be that good at Daytona. And I know how the Baker's factory prepares for Daytona. Like, they build a Daytona track. KTM goes there. WP goes there. That week before Daytona will be so heavily focused on getting Cooper's bike and Marvin's bike dialed for Daytona that, like, I don't think that it's going to be a factor. Like, I think they will go there as prepared as anybody else. And I said before, I think that they'll do the same thing at Moto Sandbox. Like, it's crazy the level it's got to when these guys are... There's just so much preparation that can go into it. The programs, the facilities, they're so dialed. And yeah, I guess that's sort of what we were saying before. It's like everything has elevated in this sport now to the point where like everyone is as good as what the Alden program was. It was unique, and I just don't think it is now. I think everyone is on that level. So, all right. Well, I think that is it. Just going to do one last look at my notes, make sure we haven't forgot anything. Faulkner's a beast, dude.
What do you think?
He just killed it. Like, I just thought he was going to make, like I said before, I thought Faulkner was going to make the mistakes that Jordan and Chase have done. But I'll tell you what, man, Chase Sexton looked so good, and so did Jordan before they crashed. So, I don't know. But, yeah, you got a dude like Austin that's on fire. He said he wasn't even feeling good last weekend. Like, he thought those dudes were going to catch him and pass him, and they made mistakes. I mean, he wasn't even 100% last weekend, and still made it happen, still got the win. So, I don't know. It's still like, it's early days. I think it's hard because you get to the East and we're in like a rhythm of, like, we know who the contenders are in the 450 class. Like, things have kind of settled out. So you look at the series through that lens of things being pretty well settled. And then when the East starts, I think we look at dudes that win 2 races and we look at them in the same way as we look at Cooper. So you look at that top level dude on the East, and then you're looking at him in the context of like the whole championship, but they haven't had a whole championship. Like at round 2 on the West Coast, when we had Colt Nichols with the red plate, you still, like, there was still reservation, like, oh, it's early days, because it's on the West, and everything was early days, if that makes sense.
For sure, yep.
But now you carry it on to the East, and a dude gets 2 wins in the East, and then you think straight away, you hold it in the context of the whole series of like, oh, it's the midway point and he's won 2 races, like, he's the dude to beat. But I think we need to be conscious of the mentality that this is basic. It's the West Coast all over again. 2 races, it just means nothing. But he looks good. He was super fast, and he won even on a day where he didn't think he would. So, I don't know. Could be bad news. But like I said, I think we have to just keep that early days approach for this run. So, all right, I guess we'll wrap that one up. Just bang on an hour, bust out a quickie for everybody. Everyone loves a quickie. So this will be on YouTube. Maybe we'll chuck it on iTunes as well. Thanks for watching. And the whole YouTube thing works well if you subscribe, like this video. Stoked. Like I said, we're going to be working on getting this whole setup in here a lot better. Like I said, we did the Vietnam thing, which kind of put a halt to any R&D going on in here. But we're going to get it better. We'll have some guests on, and we'll be watching some stuff on TV. We'll be able to go a bit deeper into these and not just talking, which I think will be fun. So everybody, thanks for watching and thanks for listening. And we will be back with another Supercross companion very shortly. Thank you all.